My name is Brian Adams. My Inupiaq name is Mungnuk, after my grandpa Caleb Adams out of Kivalina. I've been doing freelance photography in Alaska for 14 years now. Before that, I was assisting for 2 years, and before that was high school. I grew up in Girdwood in Anchorage for the most part. My family is originally from Kivalina. Kivalina is a small little village, I think of about 350 people up on the northwest coast of Alaska. And it's just 90 miles north of Kotzebue. We went there when I was 8 years old. It was great to meet all my cousins and see my aunties and my uncles and my grandparents. But at the end of the trip, my mom was like, "Hey, you ever want to move back here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't, there's no place to skateboard here." That's what I was into. My mom jokingly was like, "You can make a half pipe out of the driftwood." When I was growing up in Girdwood, like a lot of the stuff I heard about Alaska Natives was very negative. The only association with Alaska Natives that kids had in my school was like seeing drunk natives downtown. To me, I've always wanted to work on showing positive images of Alaska Natives because it's a rich, beautiful culture. My work, I wanted to be very positive. Like it all kind of started for me in Kivalina. As soon as I went there in 2005, after that, I wanted to keep going back. I really fell in love with like the community, or I realized that I wanted to spend my life documenting Inuit life in Alaska. The next time I went was in 2007, and I went there for an assignment for ANTHC here in Anchorage. I was shooting some work on the side for myself, which I just wanted to photograph just Inuit life, just exploring and getting to know my own culture. And when I was there, I was taking photos for the clinic, and then I would go on walks. And one of the first walks I went on is right to the coast. And I saw this seawall that was just being beaten by these waves. And they just built it the year before, but the first storm that hit it knocked out 180 feet of it. And then a couple of years later, they got a new seawall there, and it's a rock wall, so it's much like the one on Shishmaref. And so it's a lot better, but it's sinking into the ground because it's on sand. So yeah, they're working on relocating in the next couple of years. But yeah, seeing the climate change issues there, that triggered a whole new thing for me, where I was like, well, now I want to document what Kivalina is going through due to climate change, and then it made me start looking up other villages in Alaska that are going through the same thing. But so I really fell in love with photography in high school. And then I was taking all these photo classes. I never realized that photography could actually be a job. I eventually went freelance, bought a Hasselblad, got to know how to use it and work with it. And then I took this one photo of my friend Michael laying on the grass, lit by a street lamp. After I took that photo, everything kind of snapped for me, where I was like, okay, I get how I want to photograph. I understand the feelings that I want to convey. I like a very simple composition, minimal and straightforward. It's because I feel over the course of time, those are the most memorable ones, where it's just this very simple, straightforward photo about humanity with no tricks. I like the process of photographing with film. With the Hasselblad and with medium format, you only get 12 photos per roll of film, so you have to be very specific on what you're taking a photo of. It makes you slow down and take your time on composition, get your light right, do a meter reading. Taking all that time is worth it in the end. What's funny is trying to do this when it's -30. When you have a digital SLR, you're generally in the face of the subject like this. It's just a much more aggressive body movement, And so what I like about working with the Hasselblad for portraits is I'm looking down, and I'm also kind of feels like you're kind of bowing down to your subject, and it's just a different demeanor that I give off. In 2015, I started photographing for the I'm Inuit project with the Inuit Circumpolar Council of Alaska. I photographed 20 different communities within northwestern Alaska and compiled portraits and interviews of Inuit, all telling their own stories. And that was the most important thing to me. So like we had Inuit people that were able to just talk directly to the world. When I travel around from village to village, especially in the northwest, I'll meet somebody and they'll be like, so who's your family? We're all semi-connected in some way where they could put it together. And I'll be like, oh, you know, Caleb and Ruth were my grandparents up in Kivalina. And they're like, oh, they took us in one night, you know, like. So the new body of work that I've started working on is called Ilaka. And it's the Inuit word for my relatives or relatives. The idea is for me to photograph Inuit in the whole circumpolar. So I want to go to Canada, Russia, and Greenland. And because I know there's family ties between Inuit in Little Diomede and Big Diomede. Those borders that were built, all of these families were like separated basically. First trip I went on for it was, I followed my friend Bruce from Kaktovik, Alaska to Aklavik, Canada. But we just went up along the north coast, and then we work our way down the Mackenzie River to Aklavik. He grew up in Aklavik, and then when he was a little kid, 3 people came over and they were like, you know, does anybody want to ever work in Alaska? And he was like, yeah, I'd like to work in Alaska one day. And so they issued him like a social security number and all that stuff. So he had dual citizenship. He eventually settled in Kaktovik, but so twice a year he travels to Aklavik to visit his relatives and bring them whatever subsistence food is in season at the time. About 3 years before I took this photo, I had taken a photo of the same house in the summer. But I shot it exactly the same way, but it was always missing something. And I was like, oh, it's that human element. So when I went up there with David and we were working up in Ukayavik, we were driving around, we saw that house and I was like, that house, like, oh my gosh, like there it is. Like it's just something that's been living in the back of my head. And so I was like, David, can you get out, go walk out like 100 yards until you're really tiny? And yeah, we made that picture. It's one of my favorite pictures. Like, I have like 5 photos in my life that I've made that I actually really love, and that's one of them. Yeah. And yeah, so I've got Marie Rexford, David through the building, Michael, what else? The basketball hoop, that's 4. What's the 5th? The 5th, that might be hard. Maybe I haven't made that one yet.
Yeah. I'll take it, it's kind of fun.